Hi everybody, how's everybody doing today? Thanks for joining me today. I'm a little bit earlier than I usually am on a Thursday. I usually start at 3:30, but um, I wanted to try to go for a photo walk after the stream, so I needed to allow a little more time. So I'll probably be starting at 3 o'clock from now on, maybe 2:30. Hopefully that's not too bad for most of you. I know time zones are all different. I can never get anything right for anybody. But one of these days, I'm going to try and do maybe a 24-hour live stream just for fun. I just need to find a window to uh, to do that, but and the energy. But anyhow, thanks again for everybody joining. Let me see what's coming in here. I think there was a question right off the bat from Canada here. Bonjour. If I put a fixed 35 millimeter 2.8 Minolta lens on an Ollie EM12 body by adapter, what focal length should I enter into the manual lens menu? Some Olympus masters say I should enter 2x value. How come? I was sure yes, definitely enter 35 millimeters. Um, the sensor size does not affect the IBIS in terms of focal length. You know, because if you put a 35 millimeter native micro four thirds lens on, it's going to set the IBIS for 25 millimeters. So even if you put an adapted lens on at 35, you need to set it for 35. So let me remove all doubt there. Oh, let's see, Rick is here, and Marcia, hi, how are you? And we have Patrick and Des. Oh, hey, Des, how are you? Oh, hot and humid South Florida, Marcia. I know it's like 100% humidity today, and about 75 or 6 degrees out. It feels like 100 degrees in this room. I'm so hot. I need to get the space heater out, which I've been using up until a couple of weeks ago, and put the fan in here. Oh, the weather just changed so quickly this year. It seemed like it didn't feel gradual. It was like just really cold. We had freeze warnings early in May to like 100% humidity in the 80-degree range. But anyhow, it's not as bad as Florida, though, I know. But I much prefer hot and humid to cold. So I'm kind of in my zone here. I just have to switch to iced coffee instead of this hot coffee because this used to help me keep me warm during the streams. Ow, it's hot. It's hot. Anyway, and let's see. Mr. Farnborough in southern England. Okay. Yeah, Patrick agrees with me. Enter the same focal length for 35 millimeters. Plato, how are you? John, thanks. I'll try. Hi, James. Good to see you. And Amir, Papo, Peter. Good, awesome. Good to see everyone here. Uh, let's see. Hopefully everything's working. I think I spent all day Monday reconfiguring the settings for my live stream. So hopefully it'll go even smoother, or at least on my end. I won't be like pulling my hair out making sure every button is right. Because I kept having this problem where I'd plug the camera in before the live stream and then there would be no video. I'm like, why? And I just spent all day diagnosing every little bug I had, and finally I think I got it. So the video just came right up, and you notice I started pretty much on time today, like only a few minutes late, as opposed to my normal, 15-20 minutes late, right? um, yeah, iced coffee is awesome. Let's see. Oh, hey Barry, how are you? Yeah, I did start early, about a half hour. Like I was saying earlier in the stream that I'm trying to finish sooner so I can go on a photo walk in the evenings. Because right now the sun, it's getting dark right around 8:30 here. I mean, too dark for me to do any photography on a trail, for example. Street photography, is fine at night, but I've been taking Ellie out for walks now that the weather is really bearable for me. I mean, I have a big yard and she gets plenty of exercise, but she's a little undisciplined, so I need to start taking her out for walks and get her, psyche back under control, that I'm the boss and not her. She is so pushy. Let's see. Tina says, I'm struggling with the 60 millimeter macro lens. I know the basics. I know about moving in and out to gain focus. I'm told the Olympus site has a lot of info, but I cannot find it. Oh, yeah. I don't own that lens, so I've never really looked for the stuff, but let me see if I can dig it out real quick. Because I used to have links to their site, which was all the help stuff, right? I'm gonna give it a quick look. If I can find it very quickly, I'll let you know. Hold on. Inspiration, specs, support. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. Does anybody remember the name of the site or the link to the place on the Olympus site where you can kind of get all those tutorials from the masters, right? Let me see. Let me try one more time. Olympus Visionary. I don't know, tutorial. There it is. Learnandsupport.com. Okay. All right, so this is for all of their stuff. And then, so I'm going to give you this link, Tina. This link, learnandsupport.getolympus.com, is where they post any of their information about how to use their cameras and their products and their lenses. So from there, you might have to dig a little bit to find the macro part, because let's see. Tutorials and techniques. Getting to know your, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. So it's got to be in here if they have a 60 millimeter macro tutorial. Yeah, and then of course, yeah, Robin Wong is a good source, and Peter. I think Robin does more macro work though than Peter does. And Robin uses that lens a lot. And I think Jimmy Wong, but he used it for portraits, the 60 macro. So I would check that. And then maybe Joe Ellis might have something on it, but he's more of a portrait events guy too. So I think Robin might be your best bet for tutorials on how to use the macro lens. I should just buy that lens. I mean, I can get it, it goes on sale all the time for about 300 to 350. I should just get it because I get so many questions about it, and I keep having to defer, to other channels because it's not a lens I own. Mainly because I'm not a hardcore macro guy either. I'm fine with extension tubes personally, but I should do that. Do Olympus have rapid fire mode? If yes, where can I find it? Thu is asking, rapid fire mode, if you have the EM1 Mark II or the EM5 Mark III or the EM1 Mark III or the EM1X, they have something called Pro Capture mode. So those four cameras have Pro Capture mode, and it's in the shutter menu. So let me see. So if you have any of the other cameras, they don't have that rapid fire mode. The best you can do is high speed shutter, but that's not the same. but you'll see it in here. Oh, I got the stupid Panasonic lens on here, but uh, right here you see Pro Capture High, Pro Capture Low, and then you go into the menu and you can change settings for those as well. But those the Pro Capture High captures up to 60 frames in RAW with a fixed focus. It locks focus one time, then fires off 60 frames. And then the Pro Capture Low, I think, will do up to 15 frames per second with continuous autofocus. But it also pre-captures, and I think the point of Pro Capture is to pre-capture, 20, 30 images when you have pressed the shutter button before you actually take your actual pictures. So that's a really good feature for sports action to try to capture that right moment. Tina says, Rob, I've looked very in depth but could not find. I'll check out Robin Wong. Okay, I'm sorry, Tina. I wish I had more time on a stream, but there's so many people I have to answer to here. The 60 macro is way better than the 30 macro. I agree. I think certainly the 30 macro will have its place. Because different focal lengths give you different effects, right? A 30 macro, your working distance is shorter, but you can get back a little bit, still good magnification, and you get a wider field of view. So if you want to capture more of the environment of whatever that bug is or whatever you're taking a picture of, you can do that with a 30 macro better than you can with a 60 macro. But the 60 macro, sometimes you really want a very tight shot where, if a bug is sitting on a leaf, you just want to see the bug with just a leaf. You don't want to see, the bush and everything else around it that is very distracting, or you're going to have to end up cropping anyway. So it depends what you want. So there's different purposes for each focal length. I always recommend the 60 macro because generally you get working space about this much instead of, like a centimeter, right? It's really tight with a 30 macro. But again, it depends on the focal length that you need and the framing that you want. But yeah, generally everybody will agree the 60 macro is awesome. Yeah, Corna uses the 30 macro from Panasonic. Yeah, I don't remember the brightness on the Ollie, but yeah, aperture being a little brighter helps, but then your depth of field is so shallow. So I don't know if it's really necessary to have that extra stop of light with a macro lens, because normally you add your own light to macros. Hi, Tom. The 300 millimeter Pro with a 16 millimeter extension tube is awesome. Yeah, I bet it is. I mean, the 300 millimeter Pro is regarded as one of Olympus' sharpest lenses, and by adding an extension tube, you can shorten the working distance and magnify the image effectively. Yeah, 200 millimeter for 60, 200 bucks for a 60 millimeter. I would have jumped on that a long time ago if I ever saw it. At 300, 350, I have to give some thought. That's a little bit pricey. I can get a nice watch for 350 bucks. Something that I'll use, a lot more than that lens, because I don't see myself using that lens very much personally. Barry says, some years ago we saw an article about manually creating focus stacking using a support and moving camera by small increments, then stacking in post. Still a good idea to try, cheaper than buying an EM1. Support and moving the camera. You can, but honestly, you really need to get a very high precision what do they call it? A focusing rail. I think is what it's called for macro work. They sell very cheap ones, $30 to $50, that are really more trouble than they're worth because they have a little, they wiggle a little bit and you won't have that precision. You need a really very high quality one to do really good work. I think a better approach would be just to mount the lens, or mount the camera and lens onto a sturdy tripod and simply step the focus, because every Olympus camera has focus stacking. I'm sorry, focus bracketing built in, as far as I know. You know, all the modern ones, from the EM1, EM10s, you know, EM5s, they all have it. All the Mark IIs anyway, and up. And that's probably a better approach than spending, you know, you'll have to spend $100, $200 on a really good focusing rail if you want to get good consistent results, because otherwise you'll be pulling your hair out because the thing is wiggling. But yeah, I mean, ultimately it's cheaper than an EM1, you know, a couple $100, right? But I question its usability now with Olympus because of we have focus bracketing built in. Oh, brightness for the general street shots. Okay, Corn, I get it. Yeah. So you're using it dual purpose then, not just for macro work, right? Yeah, I wasn't thinking at all, but you're right. Oh yeah, thanks John for reminding me. Once you've bracketed the shots, I mean he would have to use Picolet whether he's using a focusing rail or focus bracketing, right? Either way. Um, but yeah, Picolet is an awesome free software. It does a really good job with focus stacking. I'm gonna experiment a little bit. I'm gonna try and do a macro shot using focus bracketing and stuff of my new watch here. It's a Seiko Sarvo 33. I put a blue band on it this time. I love these little NATO straps. This is a leather one. But anyhow, so once I kind of get the technique down where it's teachable, right? Because I could whip out the camera and do a focus stack shot, but I have to put it together in a way that's teachable. Then I'll be able to do a tutorial on it. And with any luck, I might just go buy the 300 millimeter or 60 millimeter macro lens too. But the camera stores are a bit limited now. They're still not quite open yet. Yeah. So the only thing you miss a bit because you have the Panasonic is the in-camera focus stacking is only with Olympus. Yeah, that's true. And that's why I always recommend, you know, if you can get the Olympus lens, if it works, you know, because generally they work better with the cameras, you know, and that's something that I think Casey over there at Camera Conspiracies will eventually realize, because he I guess he bought an EM1 Mark III, and he keeps putting on Panasonic lenses on that camera, and he's like, oh, it's missing focus once in a while, right? I mean, it's on. Like I'm using a Panasonic lens now on this camera because it's the widest lens I got. I got tired of these doing the live streams where it's just my head in the shot. I wanted to get a little wider, and this is the widest lens I got. But yeah, it keeps missing focus, and I've noticed that with the Panasonic's lenses, when I put them on any of my cameras, they do miss focus more than the Panasonic lenses. And I'm sure the reverse is true. You don't want to put an Olympus lens on a Panasonic body. You'll probably miss focus more, because I think the defocusing, depth from defocus or whatever system they use is only compatible with Panasonic lenses. Am I a Seiko fan? Yeah, I'm a Seiko fan more for the sentimental value, because my dad was used to wear Seiko. So it just a family thing. There's no, uh, but you know they're fabulous watches. You know when you go online and look, it's like everybody touts how great Seiko is for the money and what a value it is. Not so much more recently. They say the Seiko prices have been kind of going up in price to a point to where you question if it's worth, you know, $700 or $800. But it used to be you could buy $300-400 Seikos and get a tremendous value for the money. You know, this is a like this SAR 033 was only $350 when it came out, and now it's going for 400 plus. And I got a deal on mine for about 360 or 370, but you know, it has a sapphire crystal. It has the 6R15D movement, you know, hackable, windable, etc. with the date complication and a beautiful stainless steel case that's beveled in different places with different finishes. And it's, you know, for what you pay, you're getting an excellent watch. Uh, People are saying that's not so much the case these days. When you're looking at $600, $700, you kind of question, but um, I don't know why I'm talking about watches, but I love watches. I got I got a Swiss quartz watch on now. This is a Wenger, uh, and it's butt accurate, man. I mean, it's been a month and it's only a few seconds off. Okay, let me get back to some questions here. Yeah, swatches. I'm not a swatch fan. I don't like too many of their watches. They have a couple. They got a 007 watch I want to get, but they're hard to find. Um, the other day I shot JPEG and RAW. Was surprised that the RAW file imported was also black and white. That's only an Olympus workspace. What you're seeing is the Olympus workspace imports the raw image with all the settings you used in camera. So it's going to display those settings, and that's what's so if you reset the raw file back to color, you know, you'll see the color image. But that's what Olympus workspace does. And when you import like into Lightroom, you might initially see a thumbnail of a black and white image of the raw file, but when you open that file up, it'll snap back the color because Lightroom doesn't use the settings that were used in the camera with respect to the color grading. Like if you chose black and white or sharpness or noise reduction, it extracts the raw file, but the thumbnail itself is the built-in JPEG image of the raw image. Because with every raw image, your camera saves a JPEG together with the raw file, but it's a JPEG, it's a low quality JPEG. Olympus Workspace doesn't have focus. It does not have focus bracketing. It has. Let me. Well, crap! I opened up the wrong thing here. Let me just look at it one more time before I say something wrong. I think it's focus stacking in here, but let me look. Edit, no. Tools. It has focus stacking, but it's only compatible with cameras that have focus stacking already, as far as I know. So if I did focus bracketing with my EM10 and then I brought it into Olympus Workspace, I don't think I can focus stack them in Workspace. It would have to be a focus stacking compatible camera and lens, but let me, like I said, I'm not a big macro guy, so I don't do a lot of focus stacking. But I'm going to make a note in Workspace. I'll try that feature and see, because there's a couple other features in Workspace that are limited to the camera that you're reading the file, the raw image from. It'll recognize which cameras have those features and which don't. So Chris, yeah, I'll have to look into that, but I believe that's how it works. Rick Bear says the metadata attached to the raw file would have told your post editor to display as monochrome, but the color data is there. Yeah, exactly. And it's really just for Olympus Workspace and Lightroom. I know what it does. I don't know what Capture One and other processing software, if they can read the metadata of the image and see that it was shot with a black and white color grading, but I know Lightroom doesn't do that. The Marked Wolf, it's 3:30 in the morning there, huh? That's funny. Not funny. That's I'm flattered you're here at 3:30 in the morning. Oh, good morning, old player from New Zealand. There's somebody else from New Zealand that was emailing me the other day. I can't remember who it was. Probably wasn't you. I think it was somebody else I know from the channel. You're correct. I can't focus stack my M10 images in Workspace even though the camera can focus bracket. Oh, okay. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. I was pretty sure that was the case. Because I think I tried it, a year ago or something. But Joe says when I am in the AE setting, in the center of the EVF is a large red icon of the setting. Same as small icon in the upper left. How do I turn the large icon in the center off? EM1 Mark III. AE. You're talking about aperture priority? What is AE? Sorry, Joe. I'm not sure what you mean by AE setting. There's a large red icon of the setting. AE, auto exposure. A large right icon of the EVF, not the live view. So if I go to honestly, I've never seen a large red icon in the center of my EVF. What if I hit the info button? Let me see. I've never seen it. Oh, AEL. Okay. Well, do I have AEL set up? No, it's set to back button focus. Hold on. Button function. AEL. Okay, that's right. And then I need to go into focus and set the AEL. Mode 3. Halfway press. All right, there we go. So, why? I changed it. Oh, I gotta go back to single point. All right, let me look. Okay, same as the in the upper, same as the small icon in the upper left. Upper left. Dang it, John. Icon as center weight. Okay. Change my icon. How do I turn the icon in the center off? I mean, the only icon I got in the center is the focus point. And if you got your grid lines or whatever set to red, I can see where it would be red, but you can turn off the focus point. Let me see. That's probably in the display menu. Control settings, no. Info, live view, no, no. Maybe it is in the A menu. Hold on. AF, scanner, area pointer. That might be it. Let me just make sure. AF, limiter, illuminator, starry sky, clutch. Well, that didn't turn it off. Why not? Man, you know, Joe, I don't know if you can, but you know, if you can, post a picture on my forum, or you can just email me directly, rob@robtrek.com. Take a picture of the live view, if it's in the live view screen. If it's only an EVF, it might be hard to get a picture of. You might be able to use your phone to get in there. I have to see what you're talking about. I'm still confused. What icon is a center weighted icon? I mean, sometimes there's this, which is the little, let me put on center weighted. Yeah, if you want to get rid of that, I don't think you can. I think you have to leave. I don't think you can get rid of the center weighted icon. Let me look in the display menu one more time. Info settings, nope. Our view. Yeah, if you send me an email, I might be able to help you a little better, because I'm still. When I'm in center weighted metering, that icon is right in the center of the EVF. God, I can't duplicate that problem. I'm sorry, Joe. I've never seen that before, and if I have, I'm misunderstanding what you're trying to ask me. But try and email me a picture of it if you can, and then I'll try and reply. Robin Wong did a video on this earlier this week. Okay, I haven't watched a lot of videos this week from the other channels. I've seen just a handful. Hi Rob, I just started being a bit more serious about photography. Got a second-hand EM10 Mark II, and your vids have helped me get out quick. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Surface. Do you have any advice if I should get the Olympus EM10 Mark II, the Mark III, or the Fujifilm X-T30? really it just, the OMDs are, sort of a more of a traditional DSLR style, right? And the XT30, I'm not too impressed with it. I took it out the other day for another photo walk because it's just been collecting dust. And I bought the grip for it, but you can kind of see how substantially this camera is bigger. Well, you're not going to be able to tell on camera, but it is substantially larger with the lenses and everything. I mean, it looks on paper, if you look at the specs, it seems like a small camera, but it's really not when you start to handle it. So I don't like the ergonomics of it. The little tiny dials here on the front and back. And I've said this many times, I do like this exposure comp dial, but I don't like the shutter dial being here. I don't like the aperture ring being on the lens itself. And I don't like this, this is a shutter mode dial, really, right? So if you're going to shoot in aperture priority, this button and this button really, they're not much use. And you resort back to these two little tiny buttons, front and back. So ergonomically, I'm not a big fan. And this shutter button, man, has a hair trigger, let me tell you. But every Olympus OMD has nice large dials front and back, as opposed to these little tiny ones on the XT30. You can see, right, the difference. This big dial versus, this little tiny dial. So for me, it's an ergonomic issue. I much prefer the dials and the usability of the OMD series. Now, in terms of image quality, yeah, the Fuji performs a little better in low light. But you pay the price with larger lenses, larger camera, just a little. I mean, if you're only carrying around one camera, it's not a big deal, right? That this one's a little bigger than that one. It's just become a problem for me because I'm always carrying 2-3 cameras with me. So I want the smallest ones I can get. But I think of the Olympuses, I would try and get the EM5 Mark III over any of the EM10s if you can. Even the EM5 Mark II is a much better camera than the EM10 Mark II at the prices you can get them right now. I bought my EM5 Mark II recently for $699, and that included the 14-150 lens. And at that price point, there's no reason to get an EM10 Mark II because the EM5 Mark II offers a lot more value for the money. So I have a video called the Mark II series in 2020, still the best. I recommend you watch that video to see the difference between the EM10 and the EM5 Mark II series. And I think hopefully, you'll get a feel for if you want the extra features that the EM5 Mark II offers for just a little bit more money. So I would steer away from the EM10s and go for the EM5 Mark II. But the EM10 Mark II has a couple of things you're not going to find on any other camera, right? It has a regular flip screen regular tilt screen instead of flipping out. It has a built-in flash, which is also pretty handy. Those two things might be enough just to get the EM10s. And if you're going to get an EM10, get the Mark II, don't get the Mark III. The Mark II is a lot more versatile. And the XT30, it just you're gonna have to try it on the at a store if you can, and see if you like the feel and the ergonomics of it. Photographically or image quality wise, there's not enough difference, and it's still quite a bit more expensive than the M5 Mark II at this point, and it's not weather sealed, and it's anyhow. So that's all I can say about that. What kind of time app shutter settings would one use for night star photography where you see stars move through the sky? So you want like a star trails kind of image, I assume. For that, I would use Live Composite, and Live Composite uh, limits you to at the fastest a half a second shutter speed up to I think 30 seconds or 60 seconds for a shutter speed. Uh, but I would set the Live Composite shutter speed to around 5 or 10 seconds, whatever you need to get the lowest ISO, and try to keep your ISOs down to 200, 400, 800, under 1,000. And then let the Live Composite just stay on until you get as long a trail as you want in the stars. So that's how I would do it if I wanted to get star trails, if that's what you mean. Frank says center weighted exposure is always in the center, always shows an EVF. Yes, it does. You get like two little dark rings. But Joe is saying it's an icon, which is, I'm just not getting that part. I've never had an icon in the middle of my EVF. In matrix mode, it is a moving exposure point, so it does not show a separate, whoops. Right. Yeah, matrix mode, that those double rings, like they look like semicircles on either side of the center focus point. In a matrix mode, you don't need those. I'd also have a question. The my sets seem to switch up on me when I make adjustments on some of them. Do you know what makes it happen? I set them in the menu just as you explained. Any idea? You know, I have a more recent my set video, so if you watch the older one, I may not have been as thorough on how to do the my sets on the M10, but I have a more recent video that I did this year on the my sets for the Olympus cameras. So if you haven't seen that one, watch that one, because that one goes more into the caveats of how to program the my sets on the camera. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but generally I program the my sets to the mode dial on the camera and not to the function buttons. Because when you use the function buttons, it doesn't necessarily recall things the same way every time, depending on other settings in the camera. But when you use the mode dial, it forces the camera to pull up the complete set of my sets that you programmed. So make sure you're programming the my sets using into a mode dial instead of to a function button. I would do that as a practice, but watch that video I did recently this year. It might have been a month or two ago on the my sets, and that kind of goes into more detail. All right. In BIF, I had my camera set for 5 points. I shifted to photographing against a clear background, but did not adjust my grid to all points. Does this affect the whole image being in focus? In BIF, I had my camera set for 5 points. I shifted to photographing against a clear background, okay, but did not adjust my grid to all points. No, when you say the whole image, you mean, I think you're referring to depth of field, right? The stuff in the background is in focus, and the subject in front, ideally a bird if you caught it, being in focus. That has nothing to do with the focus points themselves. The focus point is just telling where the camera to look to focus. It has nothing to do with the depth of field. But generally speaking, the birds are pretty far away, so your depth of field is going to be pretty wide, meaning a lot of things are going to be in focus front to back because of the distance of the bird from the camera. So I hope that answered your question. So it doesn't affect your what's being in focus in the whole image. Aperture has the aperture controls what's in focus, you know, beyond the focus plane that you're focusing on, not the number of focus points you choose. Rob, which episode about the Mark II? I just bought an EM5 Mark II for $599. Oh, that's awesome. Uh, gosh, you know, let me look at my channel. Okay, I'll put a link to it. But see if I gave this an episode number. I did not. I need to start putting the episode numbers back in. I I I was told that it's not a good idea, so I stopped doing it. And now when people ask me about stuff, I have to look up the thing. But whoops, that's not paste. Hold on. Okay, that's my video on the Mark II series. That's for Chris. Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Let's see. That video where he explained to save my sets to a modal was a lifesaver. Saved me so much time. Oh, okay, good, Plato. I'm glad that helped. And the 14 to 150 included. Yeah, I'm using this I've been taking this with me on my photo walks lately. The EM1 Mark III with the 14 to 150. And I got this 14 to 150 with my EM5 on a special deal. Because this lens by itself, you know, is $400 to $500 if you buy it separately. I mean, its list price is like $600, but you know, you can get them for $400 or $500 all day long. And I got this with the EM5 Mark II for $699. That was a killer deal. But anyhow, this lens is really good, but I noticed that 150 millimeters, I'm not getting good focus. It's a little bit, I wouldn't say a little, it's very soft. So I really can't use this at 150. But I'll have to keep shooting with it and see. I'm really happy with it, you know, between 14 and 100. You know, that range is really good. 125 seems okay, but I noticed at 150 it just is a little bit soft. But that's because, you know, I'm trying to focus on something that's only this much of the frame, right? If the frame is the size of my live stream here, my subject is filling up about this much, and then I'm zooming in, and it's like, it's soft. Well, of course it's soft, right? Because I'm zooming in a lot, but I so I better not say anything. I need to take some more shots with that lens. But I took the worst pictures ever yesterday. Man, they were horrible. Yeah, Wahop says we need episode numbers. Yeah, I'll start putting them back in. Yeah, Tina, on your last question about the whole image being in focus, maybe just clarify if I answered that question for you or not, or if I didn't explain it well enough. Because I was kind of making some assumptions there that you know what depth of field means and you know aperture and things like that. Because I know a lot of people are just starting in photography, so sometimes I use terminology that may not be familiar to you, or you just barely understand what I'm talking about sometimes. So I'll try and simplify it more if I need to. Okay, this coffee's cooled off finally. Let's see. I'm a happy old guy now. Yeah. What did you pay? $5.99? Oh, €5.99. Okay. Jeez. With the 14. Yeah, that's exactly what I got. I paid $6.99 US, which is, you know, pretty close for all intents and purposes. But I got my M5 Mark II with the 14 to 150. Man, this is such an awesome camera. I've been getting comments lately, about, well, I got one recently that, people don't like that he or she didn't like the EM5 Mark III because they went to a plastic body. The 75 to 300 or HLD 9 for the EM13. Which one first? I guess it depends if you're if you're running out of battery in the field, then I would get the HLD 9. Um, or you can get the 75 to 300 with a couple extra batteries. I assume that's why you want a grip, right? Is you want the extra battery life. If you just want it for handling, then I'd still recommend get the HLD 9, because the 75 to 300 is a great lens, but um, if you're not having battery issues, I would get the lens. That's how I would think about it. Coffee flavor soup. No, I spent a couple hours this morning with my mom, helping her set up her Alexa. Oh, it's just so funny. Anyhow, I was showing her, like, okay, we need to calibrate and get some voice samples of your voice. So I held up her phone and I said, okay, just read what's on the screen, because we need to calibrate your voice. And she's like, "Hi, Alexa, this is my voice. Do you understand me?" And I said, "No, Mom, please just read what's on the screen. Don't talk to Alexa like it's a person." So oh my God. And then her other phone, she couldn't remember the PIN number, so she couldn't get into the phone, and I couldn't remember the PIN number. Oh. Ruben's asking, is a move from an EPI to a 5 Mark III a good one? Yeah, the M5 Mark III is an excellent camera, so I think that's a big step up from the EPL8, because I have both, and the EM5 Mark III replaced my EPL8 for vlogging, because I used to use the EPL8 all the time. Now that said, if you're happy with the EPL8 image quality and focusing, you're shooting generally still subjects, then there's really no need to upgrade to an EM5 Mark III, because the EPL8 is giving you excellent image quality and has most of the features you need to be creative, and it's a very small compact camera. But the EM5 Mark III, really picks up on autofocusing. Continuous autofocusing is so much better. It focuses a lot better in low light. So if you need better focusing, yeah, the M5 Mark III is definitely a step up. And then it has a bunch of other features, I can go all day about, but the image stabilization is better, has better video quality in 4K, and ton of things, weather sealing. But I think in terms of just as a photographer, maybe the EPL8 is doing, working for you. Unless you're having problems with the autofocusing system, I don't see a need to get a EM5 Mark III. You might want to get a lens you've been looking at instead. But yeah, no question, the EM5 Mark III is an excellent, excellent camera. I took a few portrait shots with the Panasonic 25 f1.7. They were very soft and the chromatic aberration was terrible. I am surprised they were soft. Chromatic aberration doesn't surprise me because it's probably not being corrected by the Olympus camera like it would be if it was on a Panasonic camera. But I didn't feel at least my copies, because I got two of those, I felt they were just as sharp as any other lens I've used. Not quite as sharp as I think the Olympus version, but definitely very good. I did a video comparing the Panasonic and the Olympus 25 millimeter, and if I recall in that video, there wasn't really a big sharpness difference, but there was definitely a difference in the CA. Wow, the 45 wide open was doing better than the 25. That's surprising. Something sounds wrong with your lens then, because the 45 1.8 wide open is not a sharp lens. It doesn't need to be at 1.8 really, but it's not that sharp. The problem is I had to take group shots and it's hard to include 12 people in a frame while shooting 45. Yeah. Yeah, you need a 25 or a 12, you know. On ImageSpace TV earlier, photographers explained why they changed Olympus. Majority were wildlife shooters, maybe not an accurate sample. Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of videos I've seen about people switching from full frame systems were, yeah, wildlife landscape people that go out and travel and pack a lot of gear. So switching to a 300 millimeter f4 Pro was substantially smaller and lighter than a 600 f Pro, right? Or 600 millimeter from, say, a full frame camera. And it makes sense because that's, you know, we're talking about the entire system. We're not talking about just the camera body. Because I came to realize the last few photo walks, you know, I'm carrying around this EM1 Mark III with the 14-150, and I've been trying to carry only one camera with me this week, right? And it didn't bother me at all. Versus I usually carry my EM5 Mark III with a 12 to 32 pancake, which is about half, you know, half the size and weight of this. But it just occurred to me, you know, it's not a big deal if you're only carrying one camera and one lens. You're not too overwhelmed by it. It's when you start bringing 2, 3 cameras or 3, 4 lenses or flash gear and triggers, you know, then the system starts to get exponentially large at that point. On the command dial. Peter Forsgaard has a video on how to put the MySets on the command dial. I think you mean the mode dial, right? Yeah, I have the same video. I didn't know Peter had one, but I guess why not? There's definitely a huge difference between the Panasonic 25 and the 45, both wide open. The 45 is crazy sharp wide open. Wow. Oh, Ruben, yeah, the EPL8 no viewfinder. Is the M5 Mark III viewfinder worth the jump? I believe it is. You know, shooting with a viewfinder definitely helps you frame the images a lot better and gives you more stability when you're holding the camera, you know, right? Because now you got your forehead, 2 hands, you tuck your elbows, and then you can frame and you can track and you can do a lot of things a lot better with a viewfinder, in my opinion. You know, I prefer shooting through a viewfinder. In fact, when I was walking around yesterday, I closed this lid and just used the viewfinder to take photos with. But yeah, this is the thing you have to be conscious of though, right? The EPL8 flips down. This one flips out and around. So it's going to be a little bit more awkward if you're actually going to use the EVF or the viewfinder. You're going to use the live view screen. It takes a little getting used to using this if you're going to be getting low or high shots versus, you know, how the EPL8 works. But I think ultimately this is a little better for me because of the vlogging, because this is the setup I use for my vlogging, you know, as I hold it out with the, anyway. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, should you buy it only for the viewfinder? No, but if you're buying it for the autofocus and the other features that it has built into it, the better IBIS, the low light focusing, and you get the EVF, yeah, then it all makes sense and it's worth every penny. And I've seen them time to time on Olympus's website as a refurb for like $750. They got a 20% off coupon, but you can get them all day long, brand new for $9.99, and a little bit less than that as a refurb. And it's that at that price point, the M5 Mark III is amazing value. Think of switching to Olympus. James C's thinking of switching to Olympus. Only have a limited budget. Should I get the M1 Mark I or the M10 Mark III? Oh, get the EM10 Mark II. Forget about the Mark III. Get the EM10 Mark II. That's your best budget deal right there. Forget about the M1 Mark I. And forget about, because they're so old now. I mean, that if you find one unused in mint condition, maybe. But the problem is EM1 Mark I's are so old, it's hard to find one in decent condition. And being that age, you don't know how it's been handled. So you might find one with 10,000 shutter count, which is very low, but then it's been dropped 100 times like I do. Like I drop all my cameras. I tell people never buy a camera from me. I don't care if I got a shutter count of 5 on there. I probably dropped it. But the EM10 Mark II is your best value. And if you can, step up to the EM5 Mark II. But if not, the EM10 Mark II is excellent. Dave's asking, do you find that answering all of our questions that you're getting something back from the process? Do we make any new neurons click? Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, I'm always taking notes. And I watch the live streams sometimes right after, we're done. But I watch the live streams again to see if I make sure I answered everybody's questions correctly, that I didn't miss anything. And then I try to see a pattern of questions that might spark some ideas for me to do in the next video, which, man, I've been slacking. I think I've only put out 2 or 3 videos this month. But I've been trying to get ready for summer. Working on my freaking Jeep. I did some more today. It's a 15-year-old Jeep, right? So there's some things you just say, I'm just gonna let it stay broken and drive it like that. And there's other things like you have to fix, otherwise you're just sweating bullets. And I bought the most expensive AAA road assistance program I could get because, man, that thing broke down on me once. I spent $600 and some just for towing. So anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about here. Oh, you're welcome, Ruben. Let's see, Rick or Rob, is the Ollie 60 macro halfway usable as a zoom also? Well, if you mean as a as a normal telephoto or short telephoto lens, yes, absolutely. It's an excellent lens. Very good multi-purpose. And at f2.8, it's fast enough that you can still get a very good shallow depth of field if you want to go that route. And if you don't, it's a tack sharp lens across the board. For travel or street use, I use the MD5 Mark II with the 17. Excellent camera, yep, and lens. Was thinking of getting a point and shoot Ricoh GR2 for street, but found this setup works fine, especially in JPEG. Yeah, I know. I bought the Fujifilm X100F, and I thought it was going to be a nice little pocketable small camera to go out street shooting, and I didn't like it. Ultimately I sold it and bought this stupid XT30. This has got to be the worst purchase I've ever made of every camera I've ever bought. I mean, it's an excellent camera, don't get me wrong, but it was not the right camera for me. I'm just so frustrated every time I use it. So maybe I'll take it out tonight for another photo walk, but I'm gonna try and because I'm not getting the results I want out of it. pictures are blurry sometimes because the image stabilization, I'm used to a very good image stabilization system, and this doesn't have any. It has a little bit in the lens, so it's a very different experience for me using this camera coming from Olympus. But anyhow, I'll keep you guys posted on this from stream to stream, how it's working out. But right now I'm very frustrated with this camera. Having both the EVF and the screen will always give you more options. Buy the M5 right now, then come back and tell us you. Yes, the M5 II and the 17 is a combo made in heaven. Yeah, it's an excellent. Frank says, no, the M10 Mark III, technically better under 500. It's all about the engine. Well, maybe. I'm not sure what you mean by it's technically better. I don't think the image quality is any better. I don't think the autofocusing is any faster or performs any better. And I've done ISO tests with the EM1 Mark III versus the EM10 Mark II, and the differences aren't that big. You know, they're very subtle. So I don't see how an EM10 Mark III would be any better versus the EM10 Mark II. But, you know, Frank, you know, feel free to elaborate that on a little bit if I'm missing something. But I don't see any advantage to the EM10 Mark III over an EM10 Mark II. Because, yeah, I get it. It has the TruePic 8 processor versus the TruePic 7. And the TruePic 8, really all it did was add 4K video for the M10 Mark III. The TruePic 8 apparently is capable of, you know, other features, but they didn't put those into the M10 Mark III. So the only thing the TruePic 8 engine is doing is giving the EM10 Mark III 4K video capability, but I don't see it doing anything else photographically. There's not like more art filters. There aren't more features over the EM10 Mark II. There's nothing photographically better about the TruePic 8 engine on an EM10 Mark III. Ultimate long-term stress test for cameras. Yeah, I know. Matthew's saying, you ever used the dramatic setting? Yes. I assume you mean the dramatic tone art filter. I used to use it all the time. I still do time to time. I have an old TG830 and I still can't get as striking a photo on my newer EM10 Mark III. What gives? I think, and I'm just guessing, but the TG830 is a it's a smaller sensor, so it's not going to have as much dynamic range. So inherently, you're going to get a much sharper fall off and peaks, you know. So when you apply the dramatic tone filter, it pushes those even more. So that it's going to clip more, and it's going to it's going to clip the blacks and whites even more, and everything in between is going to have more contrast. Because the TG30 sensor is a little bit, it doesn't have the same dynamic range as the Micro Four Thirds. When you apply dramatic tone filter to a raw image in Micro Four Thirds, well, let me take that back. When you apply the dramatic tone filter, you have a much wider dynamic range, so the tone transitions from, you know, black to white are going to be much smoother because of the increased dynamic range of the larger sensor. And I'm guessing, but that's where my train of thought would go with that question. The only thing you can do is maybe go into the super control panel and crank the contrast and sharpness up to +2 and +2, and then change your gradation setting, and it's also in the super control panel, from normal to low key or high key. You know, try low key first. If you don't like that, try high key. Never use auto. you know, gradation, because that flattens the image a little bit. So try +2 sharpness, +2 contrast, and low-key gradation, and see if that gives you more dramatic tones in your dramatic tone art filter. Kevin Barnes says, just bought an EM1 Mark I with grip and 18,000 shutter count from Use Photo Pro. Awesome. Great place to buy cameras from. They listed in very good condition. It's actually much better. Plus, they offer a 1-year warranty. Yeah, they're awesome. I'm always shopping that place. I think I've bought a couple of things from a couple of lenses from them, but I haven't bought any camera bodies. But I've never been well. I was a little disappointed once. I bought a 200mm f4 Nikon, and the focus ring was a little bit too stiff, and it wasn't really described too well in the. I don't think they mentioned that in the video or in the description of the lens. So when I got it, it was workable, but when you buy a vintage lens, particularly Nikon all metal builds, the focus ring, the grease gets old inside and gets kind of stiff. And the only solution is to take the lens apart and re-grease it, which I'm not doing for a $100 lens, because I would destroy the lens. So what I did, actually, I'm a little embarrassed to say it, don't ever do this, but I'd sprayed WD-40 into it. I was like, screw it, it's a $100 lens, I don't care, I can't use it, and it worked actually pretty well, spraying WD-40 in it, and then I laid the lens so that the oil wouldn't bleed into the aperture blades. So far so good, but that worked for me. There's a worldwide shortage of supply on extension tubes. Yeah, really. What would be okay? I need to wrap up this stream here in a few minutes because I have my next stream for doing photo editing, and if you want to submit your pictures, I think I have a link in the below for this video, so submit them in the next 5 minutes and I'll be able to edit them for you. I don't like to call it photo critiquing because I'm not in a position to critique anyone's photo, but I'll be happy to edit them in a way that looks good to me, right? And it's really more about learning how to use Workspace and seeing all the different features that it has, because I go through a lot of them while I'm editing a picture, so you can see in real time what the different things in Workspace do to an image. Yeah, WD-40, Marsha, I did. I sprayed it right in there. I was like, I ain't taking this lens. I ain't taking this lens apart. Perhaps you can advise people what is the difference between using a super telephoto like the 300mm Pro for macro versus a true macro lens like the 60mm. Ooh, I'll do my best, but a 300mm, a lens that was not designed to be made as a macro lens, the optics are very different, right? They're designed to focus far away. Whereas a macro lens, the optics are designed to focus close up. Now that's a matter of simple optics, right, of the lens, but it's designed to focus close up but also have no lens distortion, so that everything is perfectly proportioned. There's no skewing errors, there's no lens distortion type errors. The lens is designed to focus very close up with as little lens defect as possible. And by lens defects, I mean chromatic aberration, vignetting, all the things, and distortion, right? All the things that are corrected normally by software, but it's the old adage, right? Garbage in and garbage out. So you want to give the camera the best image possible. So you have to design the lens differently to focus close up versus, if the intent is to focus on something far away. At least that, as far as I know, that's the intent. And the focus, you know, again, the macro lenses are designed to have very short focusing distance, so you can get close and get that magnification. Whereas if you put an extension tube, say, on a regular, like I always put extension tubes on my 40 to 150 lens. Rick is doing it on his 300 millimeter, and people, lots of visionaries are doing excellent work with a 300 millimeter and an extension tube. But what the extension tube does is it moves the lens away from the camera body, right? That's why a lot of macro lenses are kind of long, because the optics basically are moving the lens away from the body, and that, like a movie projector, enlarges the projection of the image circle onto the sensor. So using an extension tube at f4, you might lose, you know, because you're spreading the light out, you're going to be losing some light as well. So an f4 is no longer f4, it becomes f5.6 or f8, you know, in some cases, depending on how long your extension tubes are. So, so by losing light and by pushing the lens further away from what it's designed to do, it introduces even more defects that might be in the lens, right? Everything is magnified. So it's not optimal to use lenses that weren't designed to be for macro. So if you're in the hardcore macro, then you do want to buy a dedicated macro lens so that was designed to take images up close. So that, you know, at least that's what I think. I don't know. The way I understand macro lenses, you know, for me, I don't shoot macro professionally or anything, so I'm fine with extension tubes and losing a little bit of sharpness, or picking up a few more defects, or losing light, you know, because I'm going to add light to it, but ultimately it's not the same as a dedicated macro lens. So okay, last question here is, have a great day. We'll continue to pick on you and Peter for pushing the Mark IIs as good deals. Buy the Mark IIIs. It's called Pay Me Now or Pay Me Later. All right, Frank. No problem. Like I said, I think there may be something to the TruePic 8 processor. It's supposed to be faster and more efficient and give you longer battery life, and potentially better image quality as well. But I don't know if it's worth it in between an EM10 Mark II and an EM10 Mark III. I think an EM5 Mark II to the EM5 Mark III and the EM1 Mark II, they all have TruePic 8 processors, and it takes full advantage of all the features that your TruePic 8 processor can offer. But in an EM10 Mark II, you're only gaining maybe a little better battery life and a hair bit better image quality, if any. But just my opinion. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. The Rick. One last point is true macro is 1-to-1, scientific 1-to-1, whereas super close up is what you get from an extension tube. That's true. An extension tube, typically you cannot get 1-to-1 ratio in terms of magnification on the image. 1-to-1 meaning the size of the subject is the same size as the sensor. So if the sensor is 17 millimeters wide and you have a 17 millimeter object, that's 1-to-1 if it fills the frame, right? But you can get 1-to-1 or more than 1-to-1 with extension tubes, but again, you lose some of that. You lose image quality and light and everything else. So, but typically, yeah, true macro is considered 1-to-1 or better with respect to what a macro lens is versus using extension tubes and getting closer to the subject. But I think I have gotten better than 1-to-1 even with extension tubes. Let me think. I can't remember. Maybe not 1-to-1. Maybe it was like 1.5, but really close. But yeah, technically, because you know, what do you call macro, right? You have to draw the line somewhere. So macro, they say 1-to-1 uh, or better, and anything less than that is technically just close-up photography. But I think it's just a matter of semantics, you know. I don't know if there's a hardcore definition for it. Maybe there is. But all right, everybody, thanks for coming and joining me today for the live stream. I'm going to move on to the photo editing live stream, which is a different live stream link and everything. So you'll need to go back to my channel and open up the new link for the live photo editing. So appreciate that. I'll be back on Sunday morning to answer more of your questions best I can. And we'll see you then if we don't see you in a few minutes in the next live stream.